Welcome friends of WildRift and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video, and today we're going to present you the best bans for the current patch. But before we hop into this, let's go to our question of the day. What champion do you not want in WildRift? For me it's Kayn, because Kayn would literally break the game. Kayn's biggest issue for this game would be the fact that he has too easy of an access to either deny the enemy's chicken camp to then briefly invade the enemy, or make the lanes living hell. Have you ever thought that Blue Kayn on PC was a menace? Then Blue Kayn in this game will be a nightmare. And what about tanky compositions? Red Kayn would just shred them alive and then the entire game would not be playable anymore, so here we are. If you think differently or have any kind of different input, just let me know in the comments below. But now, let's start with the first best ban of this patch. It's Karma. So for some reason this champion has fallen out of priority in solo queue, but I don't really understand why. This champion offers everything you want from a support champion or even a mid laner during this patch and every patch before. It's just crazy what kind of damage this champion does, and just because other champions are available that are equally as problematic doesn't mean she's weak or anything along those lines. She has been the recipient of many nerfs in a row, but those nerfs don't really impact her power like at all. It doesn't really matter because this champion is still overtuned in every possible way. From her second ability in the power form, to her ultimate, to the combination with Meteor. In fact, Karma was, realistically speaking, buffed with the Meteor edition. Because it's so easy to reliably hit all of those, so it's just way too broken. I just have no idea what to say. This champion still needs nerfs, and Riot is most likely not going to do anything about it, at least for the foreseeable future. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see buffs to Karma, which I wouldn't understand why. Next up on this list is Kassadin, and Kassadin is a champion that, as I told you before, has a very problematic laning phase because he doesn't really lose in lane. His second ability's range is absolutely absurd and its damage is crazy in combination with fleet footwork. Given the solo queue context, Kassadin is similar to Kayle, and nobody's going to shut you down because your champion is actually powerful compared to Kayle. And people believe that Kayle is a powerful champion because of her win rate, even though Kayle is really bad. At least against good players. But with Kassadin, Kassadin is a champion that in the mid lane cannot really be punished because he cannot be dove. It's so hard to dive in mid lane and just overall so difficult to maneuver your team around it, which basically means you need your team to do anything against Kassadin in the middle lane. On the Baron lane it's a different story because Kassadin is also playable in the Baron lane, but here he is a lot more susceptible to ganks or vulnerable to any kind of shenanigans. But in the solo queue context, Kassadin will most of the time be allowed to scale and then just carry the game from the back line into the front line into one-shotting everything in his way on 3 items plus. Great. Absolutely amazing. I love Kassadin. The next ban we need to add to this list is Yone. Yone in a solo queue environment will take over the game and he will kill you. He will literally ult you from outside of your screen and there's not much you can do about this, because you'll literally get one hit once he has 2 or maybe 3 items. And it doesn't really matter what kind of defensive items you stack, you will still be obliterated within an instant. For the laning phase of Yone, there's something you also need to understand. Any kind of wave management turns basically irrelevant in front of a Yone, as long as he has access to a third ability. If that is the case, then you can't really do too much about this champion because you can always just snap back. Also, this champion in teamfights is absurd. The damage he has and the CC he has are just out of this world, and whatever you do, your champion is so easy to pilot compared to Yasuo, so you'll always have value. Another thing about this champion is that the itemization is so funny on him. You only need like 2 items in terms of full damage, let's say Solar Charge Blade and Infinity Edge, and then you can add a Recurve Bow or a Stinger, whatever you want, and then go full Bruiser items with Divine Sunderer, even Black Cleaver, because Mortal Reminder is not really a must on your champion. You don't really need it because you have enough damage as it is, because melee champions aren't balanced around them critting, whereas ranged champions for AD carries are balanced around them critting, which means, well, they have a lot of base damage on melee champions because, well, they're not designed to crit. Amazing, isn't it? But if you want to save your mental and your fun in ranked, please make sure to ban this champion. And let's be honest, it's similar to Yasuo. On the enemy team, they'll always be 20-0, and on your team they'll always be 0-10, flaming, making the game absurdly hard and just annoying to deal with. But if you're not first pick, ban this champion. If your team wants to lock it, tell them, okay, sorry, we don't have first pick, I believe it's better to have this champion banned, and if they get upset about it, well, you at least tried. The next champion I want to talk about is Lux, which is kind of the odd one on this list. Lux, with the recent changes or the addition from the Protector's enchant, makes it very difficult to kill people. So whenever we're talking about things that require multiple people to deal with it, or specific changes in itemization or playstyle, in solo queue it's probably a bit broken. So to deal with the Lux, you need a lot of different things. Number one, namely, is a Serpent's Fang. Then you need someone to have access to the Lux, because if you don't access the Lux as the game goes on, she becomes an absolute shield bot. Once the shield bot reaches critical mass, you're not gonna kill anyone anymore, because you either lack DPS or burst or both. And there's not much you can do about it unless you get Lux killed, because you're not going to DPS through those shields, it's not possible. And if that isn't bad enough already, what about her dealing a lot of damage as well? With Lux, you have a non-committal support or mid-lane champion, depending what you want, that is able to just hit you from range, poke you from range, and fish for first abilities with the light binding, and if it catches you just once, it just needs to catch you once, and you will be sent into the next game. Because Lux deals so much damage with the Luden's build, and you'll be surprised what this quote-unquote support can do to you. But the main problem about her is using the Protector's chant, using a second ability, and then shielding her entire team, and the only thing that needs to happen for this to work out is the allied team being somewhat aligned in a line, so she hits all of them, and then most of the fight is already over. Plus her laning is absolutely obnoxious to deal with because her passive is so potent. Also, by the way, you need to know about the following. Lux as a champion can start with a second ability in laning and just beat you up with auto attacks, and you can't win. Yeah, sounds funny, isn't it? But most of the people wouldn't even dream about this because, well, the second ability isn't a damage ability and therefore it's bad, right? Joking, it's not. And the last champion of this list is Gwen. With Gwen being a rather recent addition to the game, we also have some funsy stuff going around, and people will just overall still have problems piloting the champion. But since every AP champion kind of functions the same, it's the same for her as well. On free items, this champion becomes an absolute monster, but this champion even before can do a lot unless it's in a really bad matchup, so I recommend banning this champion, because once this champion gets rolling, it is going to be crazy. For items, she needs like a Rift Maker, Nash's Tooth and a Rabadon Staff Cap, and then it's game time. She'll have so much healing with Conqueror combined with Rift Maker, it's like 20%, and even if she goes for defensive boots and not Omniband boots, she'll heal fall enough damage that nobody's gonna really 1v1 her. It's kind of a weird champion, because normally AP champions aren't really designed to deal with bruises because they have heavy bursts, but then they have cooldowns. But with Gwen, it's kind of a different story. She is crazy broken into bruises if she's ahead, or even, that is. If she's behind, it's the typical bruiser thing where you just get ran down, but we all know the problem with Gwen. People can't really estimate her damage, and given the fact that she's relatively new, it gets very hard to play around it because you simply don't know what's happening to you. It might take some extra time to adjust. But without ending this video, I need to tell you something that's very important, because many people of you would be wondering if I didn't say so. The obligatory Katarina mention. If you hate Katarina, press the like button, press the subscribe button, and press everything you want, because Katarina is also one of the best bans you can go for, because this champion in solo queue is a monster, and I can only recommend you to not try and face that monster in solo queue. She'll always get fed. That's it for today. See you soon for more content.